I don't know if you understand what I'm talking
I do.
about.
I
Yes,
do.
okay, good.
Yeah, I'm
Because
following you.
yes, because you're a medium too. So we get these very particular ways that we perceive things, and it, it just becomes familiar to us.
Hold one moment. Is that you? Did you just hear that knocking?
No, what's happening?
Oh, did you hear that? There it goes again. Oh my God. Who's here?
I don't know. Let me knock.
Not, no, not, isn't here in the studio with me. Hello, everyone. My name is Misti Gaither, and welcome to Quest, a journey into true crime and the paranormal. I'm excited about my guest tonight. We have with us a archaeologist, parapsychology, author, everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. We have with us Seika Groves, everyone.
Hey, Misty, it's good to see you again.
Hey, you too. You're there in front of the It House, which I just think is so
I
fitting, and I'm just looking for a red balloon to come out any moment, which I'll have to just immediately close the show if that happens. But I see, that you have the History Channel logo, the Prime Video, Discover, Binge, BBC, Hulu, tons of stuff, and it'd be cool if we could just stick Quest in there somewhere. But I digress.
I'll add that to the
Hey,
list.
I'll take
I'll
it.
add that to the list.
You are one considered like a specialist in the Egyptian underworld, the occult, Victorian macabre,
Yes.
and parapsychology. What
All
a
the good,
mix!
all the good dead things.
Yes, all things good, dead. And so tell me, like, what was your very first inclination that kind of got you started on this path?
Birth.
Okay, well, that's a good start.
I have just always been as you can see, it says also under my name there, ALSO. And that is my sort of moniker for, let's see, afterlife switchboard operator.
Right, right.
So instead of calling myself a medium, which essentially I guess I am, I just kind of like to go with something a little bit different because I've just always been this way. I've always had the ability to hear or see spirits. So I don't really know what it's like not to be this way. And
Mm-hmm.
I've had people ask me that before. What's it like to not? And I don't know. I've
Mm-hmm.
never not been able to do this. The moment that I can't do it anymore, maybe then I'll realize it. But at this point in time, it's just really been my entire existence on this planet, and it's just evolved into other things that I enjoy as well, hence archaeology and history and all of the occult. And when I say occult, particularly the Victorian New Age era of occult, not so much the modern occult field. It is more rooted in the Victorian era, seances and New Age and many of the different things that came up at that time. All gets rolled into what I do today, which is talk about a vast array of strange, unusual, weird, and dead things on national television.
Now that sounds like my kind of night, because I love talking about all those things too. And not everybody has that, love and understanding about what really draws us to some of things that may be classified as weird or different.
I just enjoy what I do, and I feel really lucky and privileged that I've just been able to take all of those things that I like and then find out that there's production company out there that was willing to hire me to do all of these different shows that I do. And
Because
it's
you're
really,
everywhere.
I'm a lot of places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like, it wasn't too long ago, you were in like Romania. Is that right?
I've been all over
Wow.
with the archaeology thing. I did a fair bit of moving around at the time when I was doing field work. And I've since retired from that. It really gets to you after a while. And then there was some ethical things that I've always had issues with in
Hmm.
terms of prodding around in things that sometimes feel like I shouldn't be there. And sometimes spirits telling me that we shouldn't be there. So it became a bit awkward in that regard, but I'm very happy that I was able to do that. And yes, it gave me a lot of opportunity to, move around. I got to do, right before the pandemic hit, I got to go to China and go to the Great Wall and do a
Wow.
lot of things there that I never pictured myself going to China. But
Right.
my youngest son ended up moving over there, and he's a rapper pop star in China.
Nice.
So I was able to kind of roll two things together, right? Do the history and the archaeology and visit my son. So yeah, I've been lucky. I've been lucky.
God bless you for going on that Great Wall of China, because I would still be passed out in the fetal
Oh, it's
position somewhere
fantastic.
on that.
Oh yeah. I mean, and I don't like heights, right?
Oh,
And I was gung ho. I actually got into the gondola. I went up 25,500 feet up to the mountain,
wow.
and I got some of the most spectacular photographs, but also just was able to delve into a lot of the history. And that, to me, I'm my fear is going to be pushed aside because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, really, to be able to do that.
It is a once in a lifetime opportunity, but let me ask you something. You have an affinity for Egyptian underworld. Now, have you been on a dig in Egypt or anything?
No, I haven't. And the reason for that was when I first started out, I was very young, and my mother used to take me to this fantastically amazing museum in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And it was called the Royal Ontario Museum, still there today. And I really started my love of sort of all things Egypt in their Egyptian department, where they had a lot of mummies and really fantastic artifacts. And when I finally was able to get to university, I didn't go to university until I was in my 30s. I went to college first. I got a degree in, of all things, fashion history and costume history and cultural history. And then I went on and got this archaeology degree. And I wanted to go into Egyptology. And
Mm.
one of my professors said, you really don't want to get into Egyptology. You don't want to be one of those 150,000 out of work Egyptologists. Well, that's a real downer, but my actual degree is in battlefield archaeology. But I always loved Egyptology, and I worked in the Egyptology department at this museum for many, many years in many different capacities. Started out as a volunteer, then went into become an interpreter and a gallery docent, and then working more closely with the curator of the department. And as you may know, I have my own Victorian mummy unwrapping
Yes.
show.
I was going
And
to ask you about that because we're planning on
yes,
being there. It's October the 26th, I believe.
it is.
So
It's
it's
at
going
the
to be an
Cheshire
actual
Theatre.
mummy?
It's a mummy, all right.
Okay.
I hope you're coming to the show so that you can see it. And I do bring an unsuspecting audience member up to assist me. Maybe I'll see you out there and go, Misty, come on up.
But yeah, we actually have the flyer that you gave us when we met at the Paracon. It's actually still on our fridge, so we will not forget. So it is our
Excellent.
plans to be there. Because, I mean, how many people can say that they have been to a mummy unwrapping? I mean, that's something to put on a resume or a bio or something.
And pre-pandemic, I used to get my unwitting victims, I mean,
Right,
guests on
right,
stage
right.
to actually go through a ritual of licking the mummy. We don't do that
Oh,
anymore, maybe,
oh,
maybe.
oh, I don't know. Well,
But
it sounds fun.
it's a lot of fun. And for the people out there that are going, oh, that's really unethical, and you're going to unwrap a mummy, there's a lot of education in it. There's a lot of humor, a lot of fun. But I'm also going back to the year 1895. So we're not doing it in a modern context. We're actually doing it in the context of what it was like to attend somebody's parlor in 1895 and watch an antiquarian unwrap a mummy. It's a process and it's a show, and tickets are selling. I'm actually selling tickets. They're actually,
Good.
the VIP tickets are moving pretty quickly. But yeah, just came out of what I do, my love for teaching history in a different way. I think that, we all love Egypt and we love mummies and we love the idea and the concept. And we've probably all seen the movies
Oh
and all of
yeah. I was
those
just
things.
thinking about Brandon Fraser.
But at the same time, it is really a fun, educational, and interesting evening that you will guaranteed not to forget.
Now, what are you currently working on? I think you were telling me that you were doing some kind of show, or is there anything that you can
Mhm,
say, or
mhm.
some tidbit you can give me about what's going on now?
Certainly, I came back up to Canada to film TV shows, but I just wrapped for season 2 on Mysteries of the Ancient Dead. So if
Oh,
you haven't seen season 1, I believe it is out there in rotation on one of these channels.
okay, all right.
Or another channel, just have a check on your streaming. And I just finished wrapping, like I said, season 2 of Mysteries of the Ancient Dead. And then I am filming a brand new mini series of sorts called The Rise and Fall of the Pharaohs.
Oh,
And that is shooting in July. So that's right up my alley with all things Egyptian.
very cool. Now let's talk about your T-shirt. Now
Sure.
that's your half the Sweeney Todd. That's what I was going to ask you. At the time I could only just see the barber chair.
Yes,
So
Sweeney Todd Museum of Odd.
is that one of your T-shirts, or is that okay? And they can get that through Halfpenny Dreadfuls.
They can. They can get that through halfpennydreadfuls.com. I have a myriad of interesting things on there. I've got merch. I
Yeah, I
want
want
my
my
mummy
mummy.
mugs. I have t-shirts. I actually have a t-shirt that says dryer normal is just a setting on the dryer. I have all kinds of fun things. It's great to have when I'm doing events and things like that. It's always up on my website. And this t-shirt actually comes out of my Traveling Oddities show that I have.
What all do you have in your traveling oddity show?
In that show, that traveling, it varies because I can go from very small cabinets
Hmm.
to entire museum galleries filled with items. And I have other mummies. I have all kinds of previously possessed items.
Oh,
So items that were previously haunted. Some may still be haunted. I have all kinds of various medical equipment from the Victorian era, right down to a foot powered dental drill.
oh,
I've got specimens in jars. I have over 4,000 items.
oh! Wow, I had no idea. That's a lot.
In terms of occult and paranormal things, I don't have a lot of the cliche items.
Hmm.
I try to collect really unusual things. So I do have old planchettes. I
Okay.
have the writing hand. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Back in the Victorian era, there used to be a hand that you could the spirit could write through, and it was able to hold a essentially a pen, and
What?
it would do automatic writing for you.
You don't even
So
have to do it yourself? Like the hand would just
the
take
hand
off
was
with it?
for you.
Wow.
Yeah. So that there was this item, and it was marketed, I think, probably around 1890s. And I do have one of those in my collection. I have a haunted hotel bell, a sterling silver, beautiful old bell from a Victorian hotel. And that tends to freak people out. It's funny when I put these things in museums because and I don't generally tell anybody what potentially may or may not happen when items are there.
Hmm.
But people will tell me stories, curators will tell me, and I've had people tell me the bell has rung by itself. And I have a mannequin hand that sits on top of the bell like this so that it can't actually ring.
Right,
But
right.
it does.
Oh,
And I have this little jack in the box that doesn't function. He's just permanently sprung, but he apparently likes to watch people as they move around the room. So
oh.
I have some fun things.
Sounds
I've got
like it.
lots of old different varied things. And like I say, I just collect them because they sort of talk to me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not, I'm not, I'm not like actively seeking out these things. They just find their way to me. So in the last probably 25 years or so, about 4,000 items
That's a
have
lot
made
of dusting, yeah.
my house.
Right.
So
Now, I'm thinking about the Victorian age. Now, when I think about that time period, you think about the spiritualist movement. You think about
mhm.
the pictures like with the ectoplasma and the tapping, and I guess part of that would Sarah Winchester be kind of part of that era too, or is that later on?
Winchester House.
Yeah,
Mm, yeah, yes, in a sense. I mean,
yeah.
that was over many, many years, but the Winchester House certainly falls into sort of that late 1800s, vernacular of what might be considered a Victorian and spooky and haunted.
Because I think that's really cool how you're drawn to that period of time. Have you found out why, or do you think it's like a past life, or do you just something you just connect with?
Good question. I mean, in terms of past life, I'm sort of funny with those things, and I'm just going to put my glasses on so that I can actually enjoy what I'm seeing. I think that it's just something that, for some reason, I seem more drawn to. I don't know that, like past lives. I'm more of an encoding in DNA kind of person,
Mm-hmm.
and experiences encoded in DNA. And that's always a funny thing, because being somebody who is a medium, for a lack of sensitive, for the lack of different words to place on abilities, it's always been a kind of a conundrum. It's feeling like science and pseudoscience trying to butt heads, but I feel like there's a place for both. And in the Victorian era, there was definitely a place for both. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe that is why I feel a little bit more comfortable or drawn to that period, in terms of how things came together. And I understand a little bit more what people were going through in that time period, how they viewed things, and just the acceptance of death in general. And I mean, we have a kind of strange society today where we aren't very comfortable with death. And I mean, ultimately, we're all going there.
Right.
But we seem to fear it. And in the Victorian era, I won't say they didn't fear it, but for the most part, it was part of everyday life. So I think for me, that's probably why I tend to be more drawn to that period, in terms of just how spiritualism, how the idea and concept of communication with spirits, all of that plays out. It sort of resonates in my life, even though I'm living in the 21st century now.
Are there other TV shows that are coming up? You said about the Pharaoh one and the.
Mhm. Right now, actually, Cursed Histories is out.
Okay.
That's another show that I've done. And that one's very interesting. It's literally based on curses. So, curses all around the world, different kinds
Oh,
of
wow.
curses, the belief in curses, or the disbelief, if you like, different things that have happened. We talked about things like the Hope Diamond, the curse of the Hope
Mm-hmm.
Diamond. And again, of course, the Tutankhamun, the curse of the mummy, all of these types of things we discuss on Cursed Histories. So there's a varied variety of interesting things. But I'm always doing TV shows, and I don't even know, I have to just tell people, go look on IMDb, because I don't
Right, right.
I don't even know what I've done. I mean, it's really bad. People ask me, and I have to, say to my partner, I'm like, what did I do? What did I just shoot?
Let me ask you something, because I know that probably being an archaeologist and then um, your degrees and stuff, and when you do you go and investigate sometimes the paranormal, like go on investigations, and then when you do, when it's more of the paranormal, do you have like the scientific part of you, the parapsychology? Do you have all that working in, or do you just like, hey, we're just gonna roll with it, it's a ghost, or do you try to decipher it or debunk, or how do you kind of balance those two worlds?
Yeah, how do you do the two things at once?
Right.
I think I come at it from probably a slightly different perspective because I do have this archaeological background, this background in understanding human nature probably a little bit more than the average person, just because I'm a nerd and I you know, I study these things. But what I have found is that when I go to do investigations, I mean, I love to do them. I go in there cold. I don't want to know. It's not like an archaeological site where
Sure.
you want all the information so that you have the best. In terms of me doing anything like in the paranormal, I like to know nothing, because then that way I don't feel like I'm being poked by my subconscious,
Right.
and or perhaps guided by information that I've learned. But at the same time, I'm also all about debunking as well before I will jump right in and go, hey, that's definitely a paranormal experience. Sometimes when I get spirits talking to me and giving me information, it's very direct. It can be first names, last names. I can feel, sort of things on my body that perhaps happened to them, a broken bone, a gunshot, all these types of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very hard to ignore that and just, go all sciency.
Really,
You
sure.
can't.
Yeah.
What I do is I take all of that information in, and then I try to research it to see how accurate it is. And that's why I don't like to know, because then I can go and say, oh, I had this name and this name, and maybe it's not a familiar name on a site, but we find out somewhere in a historical record, in a genealogy and something like that person actually did,
Mm-hmm.
they were on that site for some reason, whether they lived there or they were staying or something tragic happened to them. So it's really kind of the best of both worlds. I think I do tend to pick a lot of what happens apart very thoroughly. So if something speaks to me or I hear something, I've received it in a very particular pattern for many, many years. So I can rely on that pattern as an actual communication as opposed to something random that doesn't make sense to me. So I don't know if you understand what I'm talking
I do.
about.
I
Yes.
do.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm
Because
following you.
yes, because you're a medium too. So we get these very particular ways that we perceive things, and it, it just becomes familiar to us.
Hold one moment. Is that you? Did you just hear that knocking?
No, what's happening?
Oh, did you hear that? There it goes again. Oh my God. Who's here?
I don't know. Let me knock.
Not, no, not, isn't here in the studio with me. It's like only me and Brandon's in the whole place. Has it done it before?
I'm
I've
listening.
never heard that before.
Me either. Check, please. No, it better be not none of them people following me back from the St. Landry Courthouse. Thank you. Oh my God, that's so crazy. Because me and Brandon's were the only one in the whole place. And we're like looking at each other like, what the hell was that? Like it did it like what, 4 times? All right, that's one for the scholars, I guess, because oh, okay. Well, anyway, yes, I'm following you because I just like it when people, because you have to have an appreciation of both the science world and the paranormal world, because in a way, even though the scientists don't always want to recognize what's going on in the paranormal world is true, but then, like you said, you have personal experiences and everything. You can't deny that. So it's like both worlds have to come together to
Mhm.
kind of create a truth.
Yes, and I think too, what we forget is that the, sort of world of the paranormal, if you like, for lack of whatever is normal. I mean, to me, that is normal. there is nothing unusual or odd or strange about hearing or, visualizing people who have passed on, or animals, or whatever it may be, whatever living being may have left this, mortal coil, as Shakespeare would say. What I find very interesting about it is that it's really rooted in quantum physics and physics anyways, because my perception of how things work, and this is my perception, so
Hmm.
I'm not religious. I don't follow any particular religion, and so I don't really see a afterlife in heaven, or a, we go to hell, or whatever that may be. I believe that because we are giant walking batteries of energy, that when we pass, our energy just goes back out into the universe, and it's around us, and everything around us is energy, and
Right.
it has its own energetic pattern. And this is not a pseudoscience. This is a known factor in science, that, a rock, a tree, us, whatever it is, has molecules that are consistently bashing together, creating energy. And that is what we are, and that's what everything on this planet, in this universe, is consisting of. So when we pass away, this energy that we've been carrying around with us, it doesn't die. It
Right.
just dissipates and leaves this physical vessel and moves out into a different energetic realm. And what I feel like is, when I have an interaction with a spirit, and you will probably understand this too, is that it's because we're vibrating at a similar level. Because I love to go on paranormal investigations with multiple psychics, mediums, whatever you want to call us,
Hmm.
because we all vibrate at various levels. And so we may pick up things that someone else may not pick up. So I might pick up something that you don't, or vice versa, or another, sensitive
Right.
person may feel something or pick up on something. I'm not particularly great at picking up on children's spirits. And it's because I've found that my vibrational level is very low. And
Mm.
kids tend to vibrate at a very high energy level. And it's not that I'm lethargic, it's just that my energy pattern vibrates at a slower, lower speed than a child. And so, unless there's some tragic, and I mean, everybody that's died, obviously, there's a tragedy to
Sure.
some degree, but unless it's a really horrific thing, I don't tend to pick up on it. So I'm one of those lucky ones that gets to pick up on all of these things that perhaps skirt by other folks that maybe are picking up on kids, or, the lady in white on the staircase. They're not
Always the lady in white.
always the lady in white. There's always
Always.
involved, right? The lady
Right.
in gray, the lady in white. I can't say that this is how other people think or operate, but
Hmm.
I think that bringing those two things together in terms of the actual scientific use of energy and vibration, and understanding physics and quantum physics, is, literally other levels, somehow plays in with how we interact with spirits that are around us. I also believe that a spirit can literally find you anywhere.
I believe that too. I really
Yes,
do. I believe that it's not, because if you think about the energy, it's just not going to stay in one place.
that's right.
Some people believe maybe that they can travel through like TV or wherever, and then that's why that when people move out of haunted homes and stuff, and then boom, next thing they know, hi, I'm with you now, and it's the energy moves. I mean, it's just not
Yes.
dormant.
No. And the only energy that really is dormant to me is something like a residual energy,
Right.
which is absorbed by a location, so, a house, a staircase, a driveway, whatever it is, where there's been this consistent pattern over and over and over, where the actual location has absorbed that energy. But it's not the same as a spirit in terms of how things interact. I find I can pick up residual energy pretty much anywhere I go. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
everywhere. And yet, it's quite different when it comes to a spirit, because they can come and visit me wherever I am. I don't have to be where they are supposed to be.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
I can be going to a site days ahead of time, and I will know that I'm going, but then so does the spirit.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it'll find me and it'll let me know. And then when I get there, it'll let me know again.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, if you think about it, if the spirit was unable to travel or whatever, then everybody would be mostly at the cemetery.
Well,
I mean,
would they though? Because at that point, the body's already an empty vessel, right? The
true.
moment lights are out for
Yeah.
us,
Right.
that spark, whatever you like to call it, some people like it to call it the God spark, it leaves us. And so it's already free. And that's why I always find like haunted cemeteries are interesting, because if you're in your spirit form, why would you want to hang around a cemetery?
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot more places cooler to come see. Oh, when you come down to New Orleans or whatever, let us know because, we, of course, we have many haunted
Oh,
cemeteries here that's
been
just,
to, I've been to the mall. I was living in New Orleans for 14
Okay.
years.
Oh, okay. Well, then you're well versed.
Very, very versed in
Yeah,
in all things New Orleans.
right.
But it's just, it's one of those types of situations where it might sound crazy what we're talking about today to some people, and then others of us can completely relate to it.
Right.
So, I'm not trying to hard sell anybody on, my ability. I don't have to. And I just feel like the more of us that are like minded or experiencing these things, it's not as unusual as people want to make it out to be. And I feel like every single person is born with this ability. It literally is, we call it, sixth sense, but
Hmm.
it's a natural ability. It's just somewhere along the way it gets shut off in people. And some of us it doesn't shut off, but in other people it gets shut off. And then
Right.
sometimes traumatic events or certain things happen in their life and it kicks in again. But as children, we are all very perceptive to, you know, those energies around us, that, those invisible friends or those
Oh,
imaginary
yeah.
friends, most often are not imaginary. It's just adults don't see them anymore.
Correct. Yeah, I totally agree with all that. It has been such a pleasure to talk with you and have you on the show. I hope you'll join us again and
Oh
we
yeah.
can talk more about the traveling energy and the Victorian era. And just can't wait to go and like watch some of your shows that you were talking about. And if not, I will see you in October for sure. So thank you again so much. And don't be a stranger. And
I won't.
okay, so everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to Quest, and until next time, good night.